All right, this is a Transport Workgroup working meeting, which is a little bit different than all the other sessions, although similar to the data dictionary session. We'll start off with the antitrust statement. RESO strives to increase competition in the marketplace and will not be a forum for anti-competitive conduct. The RESO antitrust policy governs the activities of RESO and its members, including this meeting. A link to the policy was emailed to you with the meeting agenda. Please consult RESO's counsel if you have any questions about the policy. Sergio insists I should play this, so I will. Oh, wrong way. Where'd my YouTube window go? That's much easier when you're sitting down. I've lost it, Sergio, so we're going to move on.
Oh, you lost it.
I did. Sorry about that. All right. But it's a clip of Anakin Skywalker saying, "It's working, it's working." So, and that's the theme of the meeting. Just before we dive into the agenda, which is right here, it was kind of nice to go to Pain Points meetings and sit there and carefully write notes and then go, "Oh, we don't have to do that because that's a different work group. Oh, this is another one. We don't have to do that. It's a different work group." It was a really good testament, along with some of the sessions we saw on the first day, that the work we've been doing for years is actually working. So I thought that was really, really good that we saw all those things happening. The pain points are, of course, really important. We will get those sorted out, but they weren't the pain points of 5 years ago, 10 years ago, which were huge. On the agenda today, we've got a couple of items. The first item is one that I'm hoping we can bring to a vote today. We've discussed this for quite some time. We've got AdEdit adopted, but there are some challenges with dealing with the media attached to a record, particularly on the initial entry of the record. We've been talking about a solution for this. Jeff is here somewhere, over there somewhere. I can't quite see him, hidden by the speaker. And he has done some solid work with some other members of the community in coming up with a solution to this. We discussed it in detail at the Winter Developers Workshop. And at that time, we thought, everyone take some homework home, reread this, find out if there are any problems. I haven't really seen any problems since that time, so we will be bringing that forward probably for a vote today. We've got a break somewhere in the middle of metadata resources. We'll figure out when to take it. And then we've got metadata resources. This is a way of advertising what your system can do. We've had several contributions from that. Some of them are almost ready to go forward. They need some support from Data Dictionary. Others need a little bit more work, really important ones that will help us quite a lot in solving some of we've got lots and lots of metadata. How do I slim this down a little bit so you're only getting the things that are relevant to you? And then we're going to try to do some pain points expansion and figure out how we can actually turn some of the things we've been talking to into actionable things so that we can work with them in the work groups. I'm Paul, that's Sergio, kind of dove right into it here. Let's just move forward into AdEdit with media. As mentioned, we talked about it quite a bit, really had a good discussion on it. I think we're at a great place with this. So let's talk about any concerns that anybody has here. Anybody got anything they are concerned about? It's a little hard looking into the sun here. We're a little skinny on members right now.
At the last work group, we definitely had full support for it, and
yes.
Nobody said anything negative, and so we're just looking for anything last minute. And if not, I think we can
move forward.
Yeah.
All right. Let's just get a quick show of hands here. How many people are actually members of the Transport Workgroup in the crowd right now? Okay, so we do have some.
5, 6.
Does it look like we have enough for a quorum here? I think we do. Yeah, excellent. Oh, thank you, Yvonne. There you are back there. Where did Al go? Did we lose him? All right, well, I guess I can say that the next thing about notes is it doesn't look like we have multiples from the same organization, or if there are, there's only one. So I think we're okay with not trying to enforce the one vote per organization, that we have enough coverage here that should be okay. All right, I'll take my hand down now because back into the sun I stare. Normally the way we do this is we have a proposer of the motion, which I think should be something along the lines of motion to adopt. Which one is this? RCP? Oh, okay. Now I put him on the spot and I don't remember either, so. Doesn't have a number assigned yet. Okay. It's a discussion point that we should turn into an RCP. So we want to move this forward into an RCP that we will then vote at the next meeting to get it done. And normally we get somebody propose it. And there we go. Jeff, the author, proposes that we move to turn this into an RCP. Can I get a second? Yvonne's over there as a second. So we've got enough people to bring this forward. Any discussion? Then I'll call for a vote. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Sorry, I'm just going to block out the sun.
2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, I got a count of 11 also. Okay, in favor. Those opposed, please raise your hand.
0.
Okay, the motion passes. All right, well, that went way faster than I thought it was going to go. Let's move on to metadata resources, which is quite a complex, and this is a little bit tricky, quite a complex set of interrelated items. So let's go the right way. So we've got an RCP that, that's the second half of that.
Yeah.
So let's start with the model. Of course, it's resized itself just to help me out. And there's a lot of tiny print on here. Usually we're in a much more intimate setting. So we've got an entity relationship model between the different resource types. The perfect range where it's like trombones here. Model, field, lookup resource, and a relationship, which is not something we're going to bring forward today, but it is one of the pieces we're still working on. We have a second piece, which is lookup and related resources, which we just saw a piece of it right there. So there are two categories of things we're trying to tackle here. First is advertising the general one-of type things. We've got a collection of resources, we've got a collection of fields, and we've got a collection of lookups. And those are typically single relationship type things. There's one-to-one relationships. And then we've got things that are related, where we've got state and city, state and county. There's several other examples, property type, property subtype. Those are related resources in that when you, related lookups, thank you. When you select one, I select the property type, that then changes what set of subproperty types I should be seeing. We need a mechanism within the system with transport to inform the receiving system how you actually deal with this. What is related to the other thing? We've got the data dictionary names for it and the values for it. We're proposing ways to express that in metadata so that a system consuming it can do something with it. Back to glasses. Too many windows.
Yeah, so the
open.
original RCP had both in there, the lookups and related lookups. But then I think we voted related lookups out to split them out so we can get the first one done. And that's what's in model and field in that ER model. And then I added related lookups there as well. Sorry, I added related resources, which is a different RCP. And then I'm going to add to the model as soon as I can the related lookups.
Oh, lost one.
Josh and I went through related lookups, and we think it works fine and fits right into that model. So we'll bring that up at the next work group.
Oh, I've lost another one. That's funny.
What are you looking for?
The same window that had the YouTube video. I must have closed it. All right, so actually I probably need to have that open. Just give me a second. We'll go over here. So if I turn this back on, it's enough of a summary to bring us forward. During the discussion, we were identifying cases where provider systems are building tenanted implementations of this. That is, we're sharing resources across multiple MLSs, and it's all running inside of one software framework. The idea of originating system, source system has some limitations, which are multifold. We'll start with the first part. We actually have some standards for the organization that this might be coming from, like an MLS or a vendor. We probably should use those. So one of the things that came out of the Winter Developers Conference workshop was that we want to recommend back to Data Dictionary that we want to use this as the source of values for this. And during the discussion, it was debated back and forth. We're going to kick it to Data Dictionary, but maybe these are closed. Maybe the only list of these is at the endpoint that RESO supports right now for organizations and their identifiers. We also have a suggestion to go to Data Dictionary, which is to deprecate without removing, but deprecating originating system name, and replacing them with originating system UOI, source system UOI, name, and some keys around those. So they've got keys injected in the endpoint for organizations. We should use those as well. Then we want to add another field for tenant, which is the suggested name at this point, but there were a bunch of synonyms that we threw out so that they have some choices, so that vendors who've built these kinds of systems can tell you, for people consuming multiple MLSs, which one is this actually targeting from? Who is this tenant's value when there's 3 or 4 of them in a system? Got any clarifications on that? Things
I think the tenant UOI, it really helps systems that have multiple tenants with multiple MLSs or multiple even different systems that they serve wholeheartedly. So there's a lot of systems out there now that are starting to accumulate and aggregate all that stuff together. So it's nice to have that extra field so you know which actual MLS or tenant in general that came from.
On top of that, so we've talked about originating system, source system, tenant UOI. We also came up with, well, gee, maybe we actually need to have a way of representing chain of custody. So where did this actually start from? Was this like a broker system that entered the record first? Was this a downstream system, an MLS system? There's no real way now of communicating any sort of chain of custody. This probably needs to go to R&D to get the business case developed somewhat more. But it was one of those cases, and I'm sure many of us who've had to consume data have that problem is, this looks like the same record. It came from 2 different systems. 1, is it the same record? And 2, if I have to pick one as a definitive source and I need to be on top of updating it, which one should I actually be requesting from? Which one is further upstream where, hey, we just changed status, that's going to ripple down to all the other systems. Well, I want to be on the first one because I may have display rules that say when it goes off market, it has to come off the website, all those kinds of things. So I think there's some business value as well as some need for further discussion about how we might handle that kind of chain of custody. Is there value in it? We could be chasing, imaginary things here that really don't have business value. It feels like it does, but it needs more discussion.
Yeah, the thought is it'll help uniquely identify listings. That was one of the deduplication for offices, listings, and agents, right, or members.
And happily, we now have update available, and
True.
people can start building broker systems. One of the things that we thought was valuable when we started this work was there's a lot of dual entry, or more than dual entry. Errors happen, so now we've got the same record in two different systems that has variations in it. It's very difficult to deduplicate that. Was that on purpose, that change? Was it? So what's going on here? Can't tell. So if broker systems require you to enter something into their system first, adding the 10 magic fields they need for their business, and then they're entering it again for the MLS, well, now we've got dual entry. Potentially you could automate that, but most don't. Human does it, and errors happen. So if we could make add edit work, that brings up things like chain of custody. Now we have an automated way to build the way to enter records into a system, starting at the broker, flowing to the MLS, or starting at the MLS and flowing down to aggregators and other systems. We need to figure this out, I think. So we're going to kick that to R&D and data dictionary to deal with some of these issues, and then they'll probably come back to us to be finished off. The challenge I see with this is that's going to take a while, and we already have almost completed metadata lookups for resource field, metadata lookups, fields, and model that we need to move forward. So two of the things we were thinking is, first, we're going to separate out the related resource into a separate RCP so that we can move these forwards. The second is, until we get the data dictionary accepting the changes that we'd like, we probably still need to move this forward with the existing names or field names, or it's going to sit there for another year. So this is something that occurred to me. This is not the community yet, but I want to surface that now so that we can start talking about it and decide if we want to move forward, knowing that we're probably going to change some of the structure of the metadata. That's all I can call it is, the originating system, tenants, chain of custody. If those come in, we'll have to make a change.
Yeah, and these are mostly additive, though. So
yes.
I think we can reasonably proceed down that line without risking anybody having to redo any work. It's just additional fields they would have to add later.
So for today, I'm hoping that we can start a conversation in this room, if possible, about whether this makes sense to sever some of these pieces out and get value from what we've already done now, or whether it makes more sense to wait till at the earliest it'll be the fall before data dictionaries had a chance to complete the work on this. R&D might take even longer than that, and then it usually goes back to another work group for further work. So anyone have an opinion? And I think that's Ryan there, isn't it? No. Where'd he go? Maybe he's not here. The original proposer of related resources. All right, well, anybody have an opinion? Yes, way over there. Two people. Okay, let me repeat what I believe I heard was I earlier spoke about deprecating originating system name and source system name, but not removing them. The purpose, or what I was trying to say, what was I trying to say about that? So it was that we would propose that the standard way to do it is using the one that uses the UOI value. But if your system already has it, you don't have to throw it out. If it brings value in your system, keep it in your payloads, but start filling out the UOI as well, so that we were trying to make it so it was backwards compatible with the work you've already done, and you don't have to throw it out. But it won't be a tested field going forward after this point, so that you can, if there's local value to it, if you've done work around it, don't do more work. We'll just deprecate it, but not remove it. We won't continue testing it. We will test UOI if it was adopted.
And the rationale for the whole change is because people were putting just a name, and it might not be the exact right name for the organization. So using UOIs actually helps us know it's actually the right entity and not just, an accidental name match or a mismatch.
There was another hand over here. Okay,
Thank
the
you.
second hand was to voice support for separating them. Any other comments or questions? Thoughts? Wow, this is Friday, but it's Thursday, Friday afternoon.
Jeff.
The comment is there's been a lot of talk this week about synonyms and the value they're bringing, and Jeff's suggestion is we build a discussion that will lead to an RCP around having a synonyms collection or a way to express the synonyms in our payloads. Is that about a good summary? Yeah, still working out whether there's value in the proposal, but we want to start the conversation around it. Let's make a discussion point around that and see if we can get that going. Jeff, I'm going to assign that to you.
New discussion forum.
No good deed
Thank you,
goes
Jeff.
unpunished.
Thank you, Jeff. He's leaving. He's done.
Okay, any other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, I think for the next meeting of the Transport Workgroup.
Oh, wait,
at the back.
wait.
Sorry.
Who is that? Oh,
yes, Marcus. That's a great point. So let me see if I can summarize what Marcus just said, is the discussion around originating system name felt like a VIN number for a vehicle, and it should be attached at the beginning, the creation point of its existence as a record, and then flow through the system and not be removed, stripped out, replaced with a different one downstream. Further, that this is not really transport work. Yes, I totally agree with that. And that it probably needs to be incorporated into MLS contracts as you can't take out the originating system information, replace it with your own, but to append it. And yes, it absolutely belongs in at least 2 other work groups and probably one that works with the MLSs as well, to talk about that. And that does feed into the whole, is there value in chain of custody? Because that would be critical for it to work, is when a record gets created, you can trace it right back to the place it got started. But if we don't have contract support for it in the contracts between MLSs and downstream people, between the MLSs and their system vendors, it's not really going to work. So yes, to answer the question, yes, it is like a VIN. It is meant to be sort of if you go all the way back, that's why we wanted to add the originating system key as well as originating system OUID, so you could trace it all the way back to the very start to say, this happened in this broker office, this happened at this MLS on this date. Not for legal purposes, but just for deduplication and better understanding how our data is flowing through the system. Who's the original one that we probably need to watch, if we can watch, as far upstream as we can, to know when changes happen so we can be prompt about applying those changes. So yes, it definitely needs to go to R&D to discuss how they might further the business case around it. It needs to go to Data Dictionary to have them discuss how it fits in with the definitions of the fields. And then probably some other group, I don't know, quite interop maybe, about how this has implications about how you're writing contracts going forward. And who was it who was talking about FTP feeds? I think it was Ed was talking about, he had a recent contract signed and it said that the only way he was going to get his data was through an FTP. And he was like, wait a minute, hold on, I don't want an FTP, I want the web API. And they were like, what? No, of course it's web API. Contract doesn't say that. So to surface that back to the organizations who need to do that work, definitely not transport work.
I think we can definitely start, though, with really good documentation when we add these fields to sort of state what Matt said. And, it'll be much clearer for people and how they're supposed to use it. But I think, to enforce it's going to be not in our camp.
Definitely not. Well, our enforcement strengths are persuasion?
We'll let Sam persuade them.
Oh, wait, no, I give it to you and you write certification rules and then they have to do
right.
something about
That's
it.
right.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions? And thank you, that was a really good comment and certainly surfaces that this is a much bigger issue than simply a bit of transport business. Any other questions or comments? Okay, as an action item, Jason, could you actually make a note for this for me, please? Thanks. That the work group needs to separate out the work we've already done on metadata lookup, metadata model, and metadata field from the structure information we need around OUI, whether it's tenant OUI or other, recognizing we will need to incorporate that back, and to make sure that we are separated on the related lookups and related resources and make that a separate RCP as well. I may have said that too fast. I'll give you a second to catch up. Yeah, so we're going to separate the, and I'll get to you in one sec, we're going to separate out the originating and system information, and we're going to recognize that we're going to have to come back and address that once it gets through data dictionary, and we're going to separate the related lookups and resources so we can move forward the three that we feel are reasonably complete. And I'll be trying to pull that forward in our next meeting, which is the first Monday in May. Not too far away.
Yeah.
There was a question over here. Yes. The question, as I heard it, is with this work we're doing around the OUI and the whole chain of custody, is there a concept that will support the idea of front end of choice at the MLS? And the answer to that is yes. We're thinking even deeper than that, at a broker you might have two separate ways you can enter data, and we need to be able to say at this broker, it was this client that did the, this client application that did the entry work, and then trace it all the way through the chain of custody would be, and then it went to the MLS, and that MLS sent it to this data share, and this data share sent it to this aggregation service, and this aggregation service used it over here. Yeah, so we're trying to make sure we can go back to this piece of software in this office, or this piece of software at this MLS was responsible for the data entry, and then we can do good stuff with it. That's a great point. So the comment was, will we also be able to add where was it last updated? Because implicit in your statement of front end of choice, and I've talked about this myself, so blind spot. I've talked many times about maybe you just write a simple add edit application that updates agent remarks. That would need to go into chain of custody as well. And so that definitely has not been considered right now. So thank you for bringing that up. I will ask for Jason to add a comment around thinking about how we handle downstream changes to records. Makes it very interesting. How does it get back upstream? Okay, we'll think about that for sure. Now I have something to do on the plane. Thank you. And if anybody's catching slacks or stuff and I'm not explaining it well enough from people on stream, please raise your hand and tell me I'm not making it clear enough to folks online. So trying my best, but it's a little different. Do we have any further discussion on this topic? Any further clarifications that we can try to make? Hopefully you can see by what I've been talking about is this is important technically, but it has implications well outside of transport that needs further discussion with stakeholders who will be hopefully deriving value from this, but also have a major input that's necessary to make this work right. So if you can carry that kind of message back to your organizations and say, maybe we need to pay a little attention to this because one, I don't want to chase after things that are imagined value. I want to chase things that are real value. And two, it could have implications for your organization that I don't know about. And we need to make sure that that's in the group, in the conversation around it, and the groups that are going to handle the other portions of this. So it's kind of important that you take this back and have visibility. Yeah, visibility in your organization, that we're talking about chain of custody, talking about being able to identify where the record started from, not from a legal perspective, although there may be implications for that, but from a data deduplication and data origination perspective, so that we can make sure that we have the most recent data, most recent information, so we can do the right thing by our contracts. All right, well, that was enough admonishment for one day. Any other questions on this one? Oh, thank you. You're right in my blind spot, Greg. Yeah, as soon as I saw all the worms as I was digging, I stopped and was like, okay, I need more people on this. So Greg was mentioning that one of the implications of chain of custody and what I've just been talking about around figuring out where it starts from is brokers will have to get UOI as well, and we don't really have a great mechanism for forcing's the wrong word, enticing them to get one of those so that they can participate in the chain of custody. And Greg was pointing out that there's more to do here, and that's why some of this is coming back to you. Yeah. So thank you. Anyone else have anything? I better do this because there's a few spots where it's just like, I don't see anything. Okay. I don't see anybody else. Okay. Oh, I had one more slide on it. So this was the severability portion. We've got some things to take some value now and move them forward, and then we're going to work on related resource and related lookups this year, but they also have a lot of value that we want to deliver